Welcome to the football portion of the 2021 NMOA State Clinic. If you were a volleyball or basketball official, you have been on with us for the last day and a half. So if you were just a football official, welcome. For those of you that might be new, my name is Nate Acosta. I am the assistant to the Commissioner of Officials. At the current moment, I am Dana's assistant. As many of you know, she will be moving on to the National Federation in Indianapolis, which we can't thank her enough for her contribution to the Officials Association, but most of all, just to our family. What she has done for us in the state, and she's literally put us on the map when it comes to sports officiating for the rest of the country. And so before we get started, I do want to share a short little video. And when I was writing these basic officiating rules to live by, not only did I was thinking about my own officiating career, but the many mentors that I have relied on, but most of all Dana. I think that these 10 rules kind of explain New Mexico officiating in a nutshell. And for that, I just want to thank Dana for that and for the inspiration for these officiating rules to live by. So with that, I'll go ahead and share. All right, and with that, just a couple bullet points off that. The last bullet point is obviously the one thing that Dana has preached to this association is family and the importance of it. Even though she is leaving us, she is still part of the family. She's just moving, just like any other family member would. She will be back to visit. She will still be involved with our association any way she can. And so, but before we get to Dana, I do want to introduce our associate director, Dusty Young, also the director of football. And if you've got a few words, Dusty, now's the time.
Thank you, Nate, and welcome everyone. I will be very brief. I really just wanted to say thank you to each and every football official that's on this Zoom meeting and all football officials across the state. We appreciate your work, especially this last year. I know it was extremely difficult for you all, especially for those of you that might officiate and call in multiple sports. Throwing 13 sports on top of each other in 3 months was extremely difficult for us, and we know how it was for you all as well. I know it actually impacted some of you that you weren't able to call football this year, especially with the limited amount of games we had too. But for those of you that are coming back this fall, we welcome you back, and we thank you for sticking with us and supporting our schools, and most importantly, the student athletes across the state that play high school football. As you know, typically you all work with Dana and Nate throughout the year. However, if there's ever anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to contact me. If I don't know the answer, I will at least point you in the right direction. But it's been awesome working with you all over the years. I think I'm starting my 9th year as the director of football. It's been a great ride, and look forward to another successful year, and hopefully a somewhat normal year here in 2021, the fall of 2021. I'll be on throughout this meeting. I know Jack will take over as the clinician for the majority of this, but if there are any questions that I can answer from the NMOA side, please ask those, and I'll be happy to get some information to you. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Dusty. We appreciate that, and please, everybody, do know that Dusty's always there for officials and in all sports. He's been great with our baseball umpires, with our football officials, and anybody else who needs an ear. If you ever need a sounding board, you can always reach out to Dusty. He's wonderful to work with, and definitely somebody that will answer your calls. And as Nate said, even though I'm moving, I will also still answer most of your calls anyway. I'm just kidding. I'll answer all of your calls, so feel free to reach out should you need anything. So today we do have our football rules and points of emphasis to kind of kick off our 3 sessions of football. And our clinician, for those of you who were on the basketball meeting yesterday, he's pulling double duty this weekend, and we certainly appreciate that. Jack Jones has a wealth of knowledge in the sports of football and basketball, and he's been our clinician for the last several years, and we're happy to have him with us again this afternoon. His bio, his formal bio, I'll give you right now, his officiating career has spanned over 40 years at the high school and collegiate level. He began working basketball and football with the NMOA in 1973. He worked football from 1973 to 1987 with the Las Cruces Football Officials Association, and from 1990 to 1994 with the Albuquerque Football Officials Association for an 18-year career in high school football. He also worked playoff assignments for 14 years, including 4 state championship games and an all-star contest. He refereed basketball with the NMOA from 1973 to 1988 and with the UIL in Texas for 10 years. He worked 11 NMOA state basketball championships and 2 all-star games. He served for 3 years as the sub-varsity football and basketball game assigner in Las Cruces, and was the head official for the NMSU intramural program from 1973 to 1977. In addition to his interscholastic officiating experience, Jack was a football official in the RMAC from 1990 to 1994 and officiated men's Division I and Division II collegiate basketball from 1981 through 1997 in the RMAC, Pacific West and Western Junior College Athletic Conferences, as well as the Pacific Coast Athletic Conference. He's been an NCAA Division I women's basketball referee since 1974, officiating in the Western Athletic, Mountain West, and Big West conferences. Jack, actually, this is the kind of person Jack is when we need him. He is always there for us. He actually came out of retirement from high school football officiating a few years ago and served as Las Cruces Football Officials Association group leader for 2 years. He's been the football clinician for coaches and officials for the past several years. For his many years of service and leadership roles within the association, he was deservedly inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2015. So now that I gave you his formal bio, his informal bio is Jack is one of the absolute best human beings that you'll ever know. His knowledge in football and basketball both is second to none. And he's somebody who I've learned a lot from about officiating and about life. And he's just, he's not only a Hall of Famer in the NMOA, he's in the Hall of Fame. If there was a Hall of Fame for just being a good person, he'd be in that first induction class as well. So without further ado, I will turn over the microphone to Jack Jones.
All right, Jack, get you.
Well, thank you, Dana. That was, I don't know, that was pretty interesting. Thank you for all the stuff you said there. I'll try to live up to most of that stuff the rest of the time that you talked about. To get started on this, this is probably going to be the third year that I will be doing this, both for the officials and for the coaches. And I think it's sort of nice that they get to hear the same person tell both groups the same thing. I'll be doing this next week with the coaches. And if anything comes up, you know, I know I said this last year, I rather do this walking around and talking to an audience and getting eye contact with people. So I get a little more nervous about it doing this way. So if I misspeak about anything, please let me know sometime during the week before I do this with the coaches clinic next week. Just to get started, if we just did new rules for this year, this whole thing would take about 5 or 10 minutes. There's not. We're going to be doing reviews over the rules the last couple of years also. And many of you have heard me say we need to always think about the stuff that's been new the last couple of years, because we're pretty good at the stuff we do a lot of, but we're not as good as stuff that's not habit yet. That's why we'll do this review. On the slide you're seeing there now, that's the rules committee with the National Federation. Hopefully we'll soon be able to see another face up there that we'll all recognize. And that's where all this comes from. The committee set the rules, they go in and we enforce them. And that's the way it should be. So the first, this talks a little bit just about each state has their own rules interpreter for football. And in this state, you know, it's Dusty. And during the season, I talk quite a bit with Dusty when I have some questions. And then he's always very good about getting me back how he, you know, we talk about our initial opinions and then we get the final opinion and do it. And in fact, I just called him the other day because one of the things we're going to be talking about is the free blocking zone, which we seem to talk about every year. So it's obviously there's still some problems with it. And I just, I'm sure I made no sense to him because I got the two articles confused. And I woke up this morning and finally figured out why I didn't make sense of it. But we will be talking on the free blocking zone. And I think that's the first thing and the only new rule really we've got coming up. And so here it starts. The main thing I want to talk about here is this is section Article 2. There's two things about the free blocking zone. Article 2 has to do with blocking below the waist. Article 3 has to do with blocking in the back. And that's where I got off on the other day and not making sense of all this. But it's two different things. The new wording on this year, it talks about immediate initial action to block below the waist. We've always talked how long can they, you know, how quick do they got to do it? Well, you see this, the offensive lineman is firing out and he's firing out to a man right in front of him. He's going to block him below the waist, which is legal, and it's going to happen right at the snap. So first, the free blocking zone. That's Article 1 in Rule 217. 4 yards on either side of the ball, 3 yards deep in the offensive side and 3 yards deep in the defensive side. To block below the waist, the blocker has to be in the zone at the time of the snap and has to be blocking a defensive player that is on the line of scrimmage at the snap. So snap is made. Immediately the offensive lineman can charge and initial action block below the waist. That's it. It's over after that. Let's go to the next slide. There's a couple of things here. You'll notice this is going to talk about each one of those. If you see number 77, 77 can block number 62. Both are on the line of scrimmage. He's right in front of him. So if he fires off at the snap, he can block below the waist. Number 65, offensive lineman, the guard. He's going to be blocking number 93. He can get to number 93 at the snap immediately, an initial action block below the waist, even though number 93 is not heads up on him. That's still a legal block. Number 72 is going to go block number 55, cannot block him below the waist. Number 55 is outside the zone. He is on the line of scrimmage, but he is outside the zone. And if 72 blocks 55, it has to be above the waist and from the front. The question was coming up the other day is sometimes, and this slide's not really proportionate, but a lot of times the linebackers are within the free blocking zone. They may be only 3 yards behind and still in it, but an offensive lineman cannot go get a linebacker below the waist because they are not on the line of scrimmage at the snap. Do not confuse this with the Article 3, which has to do with blocking from behind, which in this 77 could go get a linebacker if it's done in the free blocking zone from behind above the waist, and that would be legal. Okay, that's it on the free blocking zone. But this comes up all 3 years I've done it. This has been one of the first changes, or make change or it's a points of emphasis. And you know, changes and points of emphasis come because it's not being uniformly done correctly. That's why it's there. And when it's there 3 years, it's still not being done. We've got to pay attention to this year. It has to do with safety. Blocking below the waist, hitting people around the knees. We don't want people coming at 5 steps in full speed. We want that initial and immediate charge at the snap by a lineman, the only time they can block below the waist. Let's pay attention to that and let's start getting it right. Here's another one. This comes up more when I talk to the coaches next week about if the initial contact is with the hands, is that considered above the waist? Well, I really don't like these pictures here because the guy throwing the block there, he's trying to hit him above the waist, but he's getting pushed down by the hands. But this block is legal. It's not a foul. That initial, like I told you, his initial surge to me, he's trying to get him somewhere around the waist, not below the waist, and the hands push him down. That makes that block legal, even though the contact, when his shoulder contacts the defensive player, it is about mid-thigh. Here's an interesting one, blocking below the waist. The initial contact in A is above the waist. Then the blocker loses contact from the initial block, slides down and blocks below the waist. Illegal. And I think this is the one that we're missing too many times. You come up, you bust them, stand up, and then go hit them again. That is not initial, that is not immediate, and the blocker lost contact, come back, hit them again below the waist. Illegal, has to be called. Safety factor rule. Okay, this is not just blocking below the waist. It's not always the offense. This is a good picture. This probably happens more often than we don't have that come up and we don't get it called. Here we've got a lead blocker on a sweep, maybe, we don't know, but our defensive player, that's his sole purpose in the team defense is to take out the lead blocker. There he does it below the waist, illegal. You know, it's funny when this play, if you're working the wings and this play is coming to you, your focus is probably on that lead blocker, what he's going to do. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes up from the defense and throws an illegal block, and we weren't even watching him. We were going to see what the lead blocker was going to do. We've got to know that defensive player can be guilty of the same foul. Illegal block there. Okay, there are a few editorial changes that I'm really not going to go over. I'm just going to show the slide here. The first one, oh gosh, jersey colors and stuff like that. This isn't about a ruling. This is thing. The jersey of the home team shall be a dark color that clearly contrasts to white. Starting with the 2021 season, when we get into rules, legalities and stuff of jerseys, that's still, I think we have till the 2024-2023 season. We'll get to that in a minute. This is all editorial changes. Every time you make a rule change, it usually affects about 4, 5, or 6 different things in the book that they have to get it clarified and just make editorial change. So it's not really a big deal. Okay, reminders. This gets us into the things we've been talking about. And actually not that long ago, we sat here in the same room and talked about this for the year this year. Coach may designate a team representative to handle the decisions on penalty enforcement. He can designate himself. He cannot change that designation during the game. Once that is done, it's done. If you put, I don't know if many coaches are going to pick somebody other than themselves to say, I want to make that decision, but they have that right. And this is one way to speed up. So we've got our wing people who can relay that thing to the sideline and get the ruling. We don't have all this thing going back or kids trying to relay what the penalty is going to be. We need to have our wing people out there know the rules just as well as that person in the white hat, so they can get this stuff relayed to the sideline and let that team representative make that decision, accept the penalty, decline the penalty, or whatever. Okay. This was a big deal last year, and boy, if you talk about a rule change, it makes a lot of sense. I've been at those games. I've been in one of those games way back where we had a lightning delay for almost 45 minutes, I think, back then. Came back and played a couple of minutes and then went into a 20-minute halftime. It's just, I'm glad somebody looked at this. But here's the deal. In the last 3 minutes of the second period, if we have a lightning or weather delay, and that delay lasts at least 30 minutes, we come back, play the remaining time under 3 minutes, finish the second period, we can shorten the halftime. The old rule used to say the halftime had to be, I think, 10 minutes minimum, and we had to have it. So now we've got a 30-minute weather delay, play for 2 minutes, and a 10-minute halftime. Now we can shorten the halftime, but there does have to be a halftime. 1 minute, but we still have to have the 3-minute warm-up period. Must take place before the third period begins. That 3 minutes is always going to be there no matter what. But there's a good rule change. The one thing that I like about this, and I just sort of put the actual what can go on, the opposing coaches may mutually agree. I bet athletic directors are going to be involved in that decision with their coach. And if it is a halftime, somehow, may not be right there, but I bet that band director is involved in this conversation also. So it's not just the coaches make the decision, but I tell you what, they're going to be talked to by other people. But again, great rule change. If anybody's ever been in that situation where they have the long delay and then a long halftime, it's not much fun. All right, this started last year. 40-second play clock when it started, I think now 2 years ago. Big deal. Allowed the teams to that wanted to play quick. Allowed the teams that wanted to play slower, more deliberate, and they could do it and still be within the rules. And we didn't have all this time with some officials taking 15 seconds to spot the ball and some officials taking 4 seconds to spot the ball and mark it ready for play. But what comes with this is problems. We have made an injury. As we saw in the college game, when this all started about 7-8 years ago, I guess, or maybe a little longer than that, somebody would all of a sudden get a cramp just to slow the other team down. Well, it's taking advantage of a rule. So now the play clock will be set to 40 seconds when an official's timeout is initially taken for an injury to a defensive player or has an equipment issue. Started last year. Guys probably got to work some of this when you're doing the minimal amount of games. Not have it yet. Be ready for it. It's still there. Okay, this one, I remember when I saw this slide last year. This one I'm just going to read because I've tried to put all the different situations that this would come up with, and it would be a pretty weird one. When either team is awarded a new series after a legal kick, A or B, kicking team, receiving team, the play clock is set to 25 seconds and starts with the ready for play. I guess when we had a legal punt, went beyond the line, muffed, recovered by K. I guess somewhere there was some confusion about where that was going to be a 25-second start or a 40-second start because it was still the same team in possession of the ball. This rule that's written right here is pretty much common sense, and that's the way it should be. So new, get used to it, make it habit, it won't be a problem. Best rule change we had last year, and I really like this one. Disconcerting acts or words by the defense to try to draw an encroachment penalty on the offense. This was never called, happens a lot, and I think it was not called because the penalty was 15 yards. 15 yards in football is huge. So somehow that flag would just stay in the pocket because, you know, we don't want to go from 2nd and 8 to, do my math here, 2nd and 23, or, you know, give them the automatic first down. We got them in a long 3rd down. We're going to call this and give them an automatic first down. We don't want that. We changed it to 5 yards. It was changed to 5 yards, so we'd start calling it. Not as severe. Remember, it's acts or words. It's not just barking out the signals trying to confuse the offense to jump. It's also, you can fake like you're jumping in as a defensive lineman trying to draw them off. Acts or words. 5 yards now, make the call. Signal 23 is the signal for that. I'm not even going to bring up what it looked like the last time we were doing that signal, but that's what it's for, disconcerting act. Another great change, spiking the ball to conserve time. This is an exception to Rule 752E. We've all been watching Sunday games and Saturday games for the last 6 or 7 years, and they put this in, and actually the Federation put it in, but the quarterback had to be under the center. Well, nobody's under the center anymore. Everybody's got all these shotgun formations and spread formations. So put the rule in last year. Actually, I guess it's 2 years because I don't know if this year, well, this is the 3rd time I've talked about it. They can spike it to conserve time in a shotgun formation. Here's the deal. It has to be a clean catch by the quarterback. It's got to be a clean snap to the quarterback. He can't short hop it because it hit the ground, rules off. He can't muff it in his hands, rules off. Clean snap, clean catch, put it to the ground, legal. Clock stops, just like it was an incomplete pass. Great rule change because it's it was needed. Probably been needed for 4 or 5 years, and it started 2 seasons ago. Okay. Oh boy. We're getting close to getting this change in, but you know, gray home football jerseys. Gray, we have slate, we have charcoal, we have all of these colors. You know, it was gray, that's my light jersey, but you know, it's a dark gray, so I'm gonna wear it on the road too. Gray uniforms can be worn, but starting, look at that. There's a gray, there's a dark gray D, C is a light gray. Which is that your dark uniform or your light uniform? Okay, this doesn't take effect. Home team jerseys. We've got the rules on the number there. Try to, pull this card out and see if their jerseys are 70% gray. The good thing about this is everybody that makes these uniforms has had this chart and knows what the spectrum is, and they've had it for 4 years. I'm not saying there's some places still making them a different, but they're all trying to make a gray uniform now that is at least 70% gray, so it passes this. I don't expect officials, I don't expect coaches, I don't expect anybody to know what spectrum 70% is, but the uniform companies do, and they've started adhering to that. We get into the numbers. The entire body of the number shall be approximately 1.5 inches. You'll notice this slide, the jersey and the number contrast great. The size of the numbers hasn't changed on the rule, but it's got a contrast, but the main part of the number has to be one color. 2023. Right now, 2024, great. They got another year to still use the ones that are going to be illegal in 2024. So we go to the next one. Football jersey numbers. Effective with the 2024 season, the entire body of the number shall be a solid color. You can have the trim on it, but the number itself in the inside the border has to be one solid color. 2024. The next slide will show you some examples. These are all legal. You see there's a border on 55 in the middle, the orange jersey. The main part of the number is all one color, and it does have a border. That's legal. Same with 55, the number 30, the Cincinnati jersey is just a solid color number. Those are and will be legal in 2024. Now we get to the illegal ones. Remember, top left of the slide, 2024, because these are still out there. I know. Okay, let's see why. The jersey on the left, number 25, Cardinals. Illegal because the main body of the number does not contrast with the jersey. They can use it this year if they have it. They've allowed enough time to get enough money in school budgets. If they buy a new uniform, 2024, that's going to be illegal. Vipers, number 84, illegal because there's a slight different shade of the gray, but that's not enough contrast with the body of the jersey. Illegal, 2024. Panthers, number 36. They have a number with a dot pattern in it. The main part of the number is not solid. It's a dot pattern. And it fades a little bit, just like Cardinals, number 24. Fades from gray to white. Somewhere in that point, that number will meet the 70% that would do for the jersey, but it can't happen in the number. Okay, points of emphasis. Same as what, this is really weird. This was the same slide that was on the thing. When did we do this? In March for the coming up to do the short season this spring?
Yeah, I think so.
Same slide. Points of emphasis, sportsmanship, intentional grounding we'll talk a lot about, and ineligible downfield we'll talk a lot about. The sportsmanship has to do with more than just, as you see, we got a PA announcer, the band, and the fans there, and that one in the middle could have been the way my son dressed when he was in high school to go to the game. But we worry about sportsmanship on the field. We hear all of this stuff. It's tough to do anything about that. I know that. Everybody in this room knows that. But if you've got a problem with the PA announcer, if you've got problems with the band, you've got a problem with the fans that are unruly, that needs to be brought to the attention of this office, and it needs to be taken care of that way. You've got enough worrying about sportsmanship between players and coaches. And bring this attention, bring it to the NMOA, and let them take care of this. Okay, intentional grounding. There's another thing we get confused with watching Saturday and Sunday, where the guy that, he scrambled around, threw it out of bounds, but he made it past the line of scrimmage, so it was okay. That's not in high school. If you intentionally ground the ball in high school, it's a penalty. If you look at both of these slides, they both have to do with the quarterback being under duress and then doesn't want to get sacked and throws it. In A, rolls out to the right, stops, come back, still nobody open, and you can see the little yellow and the white figures, everybody's covered, so he just throws it out of bounds. It not only stops the clock, keeps him from being sacked for a loss. Illegal. B, same thing, rolls out, wants to throw back against, both receivers are guarded. Well, I'm just going to dump this because those two yellow dots are getting ready to sack me. So stops the clock. No loss of yardage. The issue on this is, and this came up last year, what about the receiver, the wide receiver who runs a post? Quarterback reads it and he's going to do a fly pattern down the sideline, and he throws it way down the sideline, and the receiver's nowhere in the area running a post. That's not intentional grounding. That's a misread, and we got to understand that. That usually happens in 3 or 4 seconds. Quarterback gets the snap, throws the pass, it just gets a misread, and we need to know that's a misread. The intentional grounding usually happens when the quarterback's under duress and has to roll out and scramble. There can be communication, and there needs to be communication between the referee and the wing officials. The referee's doing his job. He's staying with the quarterback after the pass is thrown and doesn't really know maybe where the pass went or if there was an eligible receiver out there. Get together, nothing wrong with getting together and say, yes, it was, drop the flag, administer the penalty, or the wingman coming up to the referee and saying, that's not grounding, he threw it out there, the guy made the wrong route. Get together, get this communicated, get it right. If it is intentional grounding, get it called. Ineligible downfield. Very important to notice on this that there's expanded neutral zone. When they drop, when we have pass formation, that lineman can block up to 2 yards downfield and not be illegally downfield. If you look at this slide, he's actually, if you go by the scale on that, he's down the field about 1 yard. The guy's blocking is about 2 yards, so he can actually push him a little further. Problem is, at the point that pass is thrown, they cannot be further than that expanded neutral zone downfield. One of the problems that's been happening in this, and films I watched when I got ready for the one I did in the spring on this, we had ineligibles called downfield that weren't because of the long pass that hangs in the air a long time. And one official notices at that time there's a lineman about 10 yards downfield and flags it. I saw this on film. At the time that pass was thrown in the left quarterback's hand, he was not downfield, he was legal. Looked really bad because he was way down there, and that's the official that's looking at it, flagged it. Penalty was administered. It's a bad call. We have it called when it shouldn't be called. It's bad, but we need to make sure if they are downfield, we call it. But if you've got doubt where the pass was in the air or thrown, and you're not 100% sure it's that close, he's not ineligible downfield. Okay. Line of scrimmage formation. One of the slides that's not in here that I just noticed that it's not in this whole thing was, it was a couple of years ago, I think they put in the thing, we could have 5 men on the line. And quite frankly, I don't know why that brought up right now, because that has nothing to do with this slide. But we can only have 1 player in no man's land. And that player has to be in a position to receive the snap. Number 88 is illegal. Why? Because he's not clearly in the backfield and he's not clearly on the line. His helmet does not break the line of the center's waist, and his helmet breaks the line of his nearest lineman. Illegal formation. Flag at the snap. The problem with this is why this has gotten out of hand the last number of years is when we start getting these quick offenses, getting set up, we don't have a lot of time to really look and see where they all are. We've got to be ready to identify this for the quick snaps and going. Years back, everybody stayed in the huddle for the whole time. We got it when they came to the line. We had plenty of time to see if everything was legal. Count the number of men on the line. Make sure there was a correct number. Check our numbers to see if they were eligible receivers. We don't have that anymore. We've got a lot of the quick offenses, and we've got to identify this particular positioning immediately and get it flagged and get it stopped. That is an illegal formation. Game officials manual. I know this comes from the print from the National Federation, and I know New Mexico has their own. It is non-print years, and the thing we need to talk about here is clock management communication. We've had 2 or 3 years now where we've had the shot of the game clock or the clock 40 seconds, 25 seconds. There's not as many questions on the sideline because a lot of our places still don't have the clocks down on the field. Was this a 25? Get that settled and know when the coach asks, is the clock running 25? Is it running at a 40? That's where we get the communications between the officials. If we've got to reset it, right here is the signal. With that one hand up in the air, it's going to 25 seconds. Reset the clock, start it at 25, do the count. If we want to set it at 40, it says right there at the bottom, they're going to use both hands. We've all seen that signal on TV too. Both hands above. Just resetting the play clock to 25 seconds, 40 seconds. So get that communicated between the officials. So whatever our wingman is telling the coach on the sideline is actually where it is set. That does help. If all of a sudden something happens and the wing official says it was at 40 and it was actually 25 and they don't get the play off, we're going to have some communication then, I guarantee you. But it's not going to be the kind of communication we needed before it ever happened. Get it straight so everybody knows what's going on. And that's it with the new rules. Like I said, most of it was reviewed. I would like to do this in a couple of years when we don't talk about free blocking zone, which means we're officiating it correctly and it doesn't need to be on there. Okay, so just pay attention to that. It's a safety factor rule. Officiate it the way it's written and take care of it. The only other thing I thought about something to try to say here at the end. Obviously, we all, and Dana leaving stuff, and I'm looking across the table, trying not to look at her across the table right now. We're going to miss her. And when I think of what Dana's tried to get accomplished here, we need to get accomplished within our individual crews also, and that word is chemistry. We talk, you hear on TV, all the teams, they're playing above their head because their chemistry is so good. Well, we need that same chemistry, not only in our meetings on Mondays, or whenever you have yours, that's when I had mine. We need that chemistry during the game. A couple of years ago at a basketball camp that I was working, one of the questions I got from somebody totally came off the wall was I was asked how I handled working games with officials that I didn't like. And well, I have nothing rehearsed for that. So I said, well, you know what? Obviously, we don't like everybody we work with, like most of them. But I was born, Dad was a coach, married a coach. And chemistry was a big thing of everything they did, getting their teams ready. And it needs to be what we do too. I will do everything I can in a 2 or 3 hour period, even if I'm around people I don't like. But you know what? We're going to figure out a way to have a good game. And if it's up to me to be the one, I'll be that one. If the one I don't like doesn't want to break the ice, that's up to them, but I'm going to break that ice. I'm going to start the chemistry. A lot of us travel in cars to games, get a lot of chance to talk. But what I want to talk about is the games that are in the cities where all of us just meet at the gym, the stadium. You know what? Be the one. Be the one. It doesn't have to be the referee. It could be back judge. It could be the umpire. Hey, I'm going to meet right down there at Starbucks about an hour before I have a cup of coffee. Before I go over, we got to be there, an hour and a half, whatever. But I'm going to go over there, go and stop by and have a cup of coffee. Be that person that starts that chemistry before you get to the stadium. Be that person that starts that chemistry at your meetings on Monday or whatever night of the week it is. Start that chemistry. You would be surprised how much easier the game goes when everybody's just not just like an officiating, but like being around everybody. It really helps. My best friends are from officiating, and most of yours will be the rest of your life. Chemistry, chemistry, chemistry can just happen over a cup of coffee. Okay, thank you all.
So with that, I kind of want to just kind of piggyback off of what Jack just said. And Jack, I've had the privilege to officiate the other sport with him and be on the court with him. But in last night's other sports presentation, the national coordinator of women's officiating, she talked about her legacy and how she had worked Final Fours and that all was great. But at the end of the day, she wanted to know she wanted her legacy to be that when somebody saw her name on the schedule, that they were excited to work with her. And I can tell you that anytime that Jack Jones has popped up on my schedule, talk about a true treat and just excited to, and I believe that is what Jack is talking about. Be the official that when your name comes up on the schedule, everybody wants to work with, and ask yourself that. We are the NMOA. We are a family. We are a dysfunctional family, but at the end of the day, we have to set aside differences because the game deserves it and our organization deserves it. And so with that, I'll let Dana kind of close it out.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jack. Once again, great job and always an honor to be in your presence, actually. So I appreciate you being here. Dusty, do you have anything, closing thoughts for the rules portion of this clinic?
So yeah, just wanted to let everyone know, obviously last year was very unique and we had some modifications that were allowed by the NFHS, for example, expanding the team box on the sidelines. We are still unsure as to how exactly this 2021 fall season will look. We are hoping that it's, pretty much normal. However, we won't find out really until the end of this month, maybe even early August, as to what the public education department's guidelines will be for the upcoming school year. Based on that, we may have to keep some of our COVID guidelines from the spring 2021 season. We will, of course, pass that information on as soon as we have it. But again, our hope is that we will be looking at, almost a completely normal football season. However, there may be some modifications that are set upon us from the governor's office.
Thank you, Dusty. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jack before we adjourn? We have about 10 minutes left allotted to this session. So if you've got questions for Jack, please feel free to unmute and ask. And if not, we'll go ahead and end early and then give you all a little break before the 2:15 session starts. But this is as appropriate a time as any. I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do for officiating here in the state of New Mexico and for the student athletes here. Many of you have heard me talk about one of my favorite memories in 24 years was the time that I hopped in a van with a crew of officials and went to Lovington for a football state semifinal game, and being able to be the one who brought the donuts, and it was amazing, the stories in the van, which probably half of them were true, the rest of them I'm not sure, but it was a great time, and it was something that I'll always cherish. And I think that sometimes when things get rough in your season, it's important to think about that camaraderie, that brotherhood, sisterhood, friendship, and family that we all have as officials in the officiating family. You'll always be a part of my family, and you're going with me to Indiana in many, many ways. So thank you for everything that you've done for us as an association, and for enhancing my life and the life of my family as well. Those of you who know my husband, Ed, he'll miss all of you. He kind of formed a camaraderie and bond with the football officials through his role as an APS athletic coordinator, and he'll miss you all as much as I will. So thank you for everything you do. I think Nate's monitoring some stuff in the chat, but we'll go ahead and we'll stay on just a couple of minutes. If you want to sign out, feel free, and then you'll log back in for the 2:15. But thank you for your time, and we'll see you in about 25-ish minutes.
So there is a question, Jack. What chapter in Texas did you work?
Football?
Yeah.
I didn't.
No. Basketball?
Yeah, basketball at El Paso.
Yeah.
It was only a half-hour drive.
All right. Any other questions for Jack before we log out? Any questions for Dusty before we log out? Any questions for Dana or myself?
All right. Well,
Yeah.
yes, Bill.
Going back to that free blocking zone, would that find in the federation.com too also?
On the website?
Yes.
I have not actually, have you looked on the Federation website?
That's where I sort of got all the.
Yeah,
information.
so yeah,
That's a
it would,
question.
Bill, it would be on the NFHS website.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hey, and then regarding rule books, I know we brought it up in volleyball for those of you who are on. Early next week, I will give you digital access. You probably will not get your, hard copy until the following week, but you will have your digital access next week.
Yeah, I read this in the rule book this morning. If you want to really read about this, it's still, and I'll go back over the rule number, it's 217.2C is the new one. That's where the thing was put in this year, where the words immediate and initial were added, which were needed. And also it's in rule 217, it's all about the free blocking zone. And it also has, I think it's article 3 that has to do with blocking from behind, which really read those, read them both, and then separate them, because there's two different sets of requirements for blocking below the waist and blocking from behind. So, and like I said, I started doing this week, and I got the two confused, and the more I tried to straighten it out, I got more confused. I confused the hell out of Dusty, I think, when I called him the other day, because I don't think he had any idea what I was talking about. And I didn't. It was crazy. It didn't really dawn on me this morning what I was doing. And, you know, it just bing, and all of a sudden it clears up and said, man, did I make a fool of myself the other day on a phone call? So, but that's it. Read those two. They're totally different. And I tried to combine the two and just got everything messed up. So, thanks.
All right.
Well, we'll see everybody back at 2:15. Go stretch your legs, grab something to eat or drink or whatever it is you need to do in the next several minutes, and we'll see you back here. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jack.
Mhm.